look at college, the debt crisis, and think this is hopeless and it's hard, but it's a big number, $1.2 trillion.
I think under the past administration, it more than doubled from $6 billion to 1.3 trillion.
$1.5 trillion.
An expected $1.6 trillion.
More than $1.6 trillion. That is the total student loan debt in the United States, the highest it's ever been. That debt comes from just 44.7 million borrowing Americans. The student loan crisis has plagued many Americans attending college and university and will affect many more to come. But where did it start?
Most people, to access higher education, need to have a source of financing. And the kind of financing that exists, there are really two broad forms. One is a public form of financing, which comes from the Department of Education. And then there's private student loan financing. So you can also get your financing from a private lender.
The student debt crisis in and of itself is very complicated. A system that's being financed by students borrowing money rather than the right amount of support from state and federal governments. And another piece of that crisis is about student success and students going to college and not finishing and still facing difficulty paying around even small amounts of debt as well.
A majority of Americans are enrolled in higher education. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 69.7% of high school graduates in 2016 attended some sort of college.
A college degree is more and more important to being able to have job opportunities for folks to pursue their passion and interest, and just to participate in the economy. There's more people going to college. So that's positive, but the challenge is the ways that they're financing it.
Education and access to education has been a very important part of our economy. It's a very important part of economic mobility in our country.
Before you even begin college, applications alone can cost around $60. Even if you do get in, dorms and textbooks add an even greater cost onto the price tag that comes with college.
If they don't provide enough financial resources for you to attend, then that limits your choices significantly.
People of color have been constantly left behind and marginalized in the history of our nation. This is no different with college. The burdens of college and university debt have an even greater effect on students of color.
In many different ways, the student loan debt we feel is a civil rights issue. We see that African American women hold the most amount of student loan debt. We also see on average that it takes African Americans 12 years more than their white counterparts to pay off their student loans. Elizabeth Warren just said during the debate that like 95% of white people pay off their student loan debt and 5% of Black people have paid off their student loan debt.
The obstacles that graduates face to try and pay off their loans can sometimes force them to default on their loans. Defaulting has a devastating effect on the future of a graduate's financial decision.
Faults. That's when the student loan borrowers have stopped being able to pay back at all.
One of the main consequences of defaulting on your loans is the impact it has on housing and the ability to buy a home.
One of the key indicators that people think about when they decide whether or not they're going to allow you to buy a home, what is the likelihood that you're going to pay me back? And one of the ways to evaluate that is credit score. And so when you do something like you default on your student loans, you hurt your credit score. And you could reduce your credit score to the extent that you might not be eligible to get a mortgage. Or if someone does give you a mortgage, they might charge you a very, very high interest rate.
Student debt consumes the lives of graduates, and with the lack of information and resources, it can sometimes wreck their finances.
It's important for those who work in the financial aid departments, at the federal level, to provide students with accurate and consistent information, and there's been evidence that in the past that hasn't always been the case. So you could call and get one answer and speak with someone else the next time and get a different answer.
And students don't have good information. It's very hard to know how to compare different colleges and universities and how and where to get your financing.
But the big problem, and why it's a crisis, is that the student loan servicing companies and all of the agencies and institutions institutions designed to help borrowers, frankly, do a really bad job. And they give out a lot of bad information and steer people towards things that cost them much more money over time.
The presidential candidates should be doing more to address this crisis in our country. State funding has lowered, causing public universities to have to raise tuition and fees. Presidential candidates should make sure state funding for public universities is increased and regulate the policies in place at private universities.
We understand how valuable and important education is. Our future as a country depends on having an educated workforce. And so the fact that the system is broken and that people can't find the help or access the information that they need is really the big